We hope you will enjoy this movie about the lives and contributions made by Black men and women in Perry, Georgia. This information was collected and presented by the Perry Area Historical Society, who strives to preserve the stories, documents, materials, and biographies of citizens who have made significant contributions to their community. We hope you will add to our archive collection by becoming involved in the collection's growth and development, housed in the Perry Area Historical Museum. The Black communities within the city limits of Perry are known as New Hope, Sand Hill, Creekwood, Five Points, Hilltop, and Oldfield. The citizens of each of these communities have contributed to the civic, economic, spiritual, cultural, and educational growth of Perry. We will now begin our story with those individuals who have served in civic roles. Hervia Ingram became the first Black member of Perry City Council in 1985 and continued to serve through 1997, serving as mayor pro tem several times during his tenure. He served in the Houston County School System as a teacher and department chair from 1959 to 1984, and then became the director of continuing education at Houston Vocational Center. He served as the assistant to the executive director of the Georgia Agricultural Exposition Authority for 2 years. He has been a member of the Houston County Board of Elections, the Board of Tax Equalization, the Perry Area Convention and Visitors Bureau, the local Red Cross Advisory Board, and the Three Rivers Healthcare Advisory Board. The House of Representatives adopted a resolution in 2000 commending Hervia for his exceptional public service career. Phyllis Bynum Grace became the first Black City Councilwoman when she took office to represent Post 1 in District 1 on January 6, 1998. She has been involved in the Neighborhood Parks Program, planning for the Ball Street Extension, programs for senior citizens, and expansion of the number of sidewalks within the city. In 2002, she served as mayor pro tem, and more recently, Mrs. Bynum Grace spearheaded the development of Legacy Park, a tribute to Perry's veterans of past and present. In 2016, Phyllis became a Georgia Municipal Association Hall of Fame recipient, and then in 2018 received the prestigious Certificate of Dedication Award from the Harold F. Holtz Municipal Training Institute. Willie King has served on the Perry City Council to represent Post 2 in District 1 since January 2008 and has served as mayor pro tem twice during this tenure. He has also served on the Perry Planning Commission for 22 years and has been involved as a Perry Housing Team member. Annie Warren currently serves as Perry's first Black City Clerk, where she maintains campaign filings of elected officials, including campaign contribution forms and financial disclosure forms. She assists with agenda preparation, maintains all appointments to city boards, provides administrative support, and maintains financial reports of the mayor and city council. She was hired in 2007 as secretary to the mayor and administrative assistant to the city manager, but was promoted to city clerk in 2015. Brenda King has been employed with the city of Perry for 35 years and has served as the director of administration for the past 16 years. A Fort Valley State alumni, Brenda was the first African-American woman department head for the city of Perry. She has received 19 certificates of excellence in financial reporting for the city of Perry and was inducted into the Fort Valley State University National Alumni Association Hall of Fame in October 2011. Perry's first Black firefighter was William Hudson. He was 26 years old when he was hired in 1981, and he worked for the city for 2 years. Ephraim Wheeler became the first Black battalion chief and fire prevention coordinator for the Perry Fire Department in 2014. He began as a volunteer fireman in 1995, became a firefighter 2 in 2003, became a firefighter 3 in 2005, and was promoted to become the first Black sergeant for the Perry Fire Department in 2007. The following year, he was promoted to become the first Black lieutenant for the Perry Fire Department. Battalion Chief Charles Mundy became the first Black captain for the Perry Fire Department in 2014, and then became the first Black training coordinator in 2018. He began as a firefighter 1 in 2005, became a firefighter 2 in 2007, a sergeant in 2008, and a lieutenant in 2013. John Moody was hired by Perry City Council in March 1966 as Perry's first Black policeman. He had been a county agent for Houston County and had worked in the maintenance department of the Houston County Board of Education before being hired as a policeman. He resigned in 1967 because of ill health. Major William Phelps, known as Bill, has been a member of the City of Perry Police Department since March 29, 1989. He started his career as a patrol officer and held many titles during his career. In 1995, he was the first black person to be promoted to the rank of captain at the Perry Police Department. During the absence of a chief of police from August 1996 until May 1997, and again from June 2012 until March 2013, Captain Phelps was appointed to serve as the acting police chief to oversee the department until a police chief could be selected. He has also served as the Criminal Investigation Division Commander and the Patrol Division Commander. He achieved another milestone in 2016 as being the first black to be promoted to the rank of major with the City of Perry. As we continue our story, let's discuss the role of black educators in our community, but begin the narrative with a brief history of education in Houston County. Public education in Houston County was provided by family and community until the Georgia legislature in 1866 mandated a free public school system. In the first state reporting of schools in 1873, there were 21 white schools and 15 black schools in Houston County. By 1885, there were 33 white schools and 39 black schools in operation in the county, with an attendance of 1,003 white children and 1,476 black children. These schools were primarily 1- and 2-room schools built and paid for by the various communities. In 1904, the state mandated that taxes be levied on property to support public schools, and in 1911, the state mandated high schools. However, Houston County already had 2 high schools, Perry High School for whites that began in 1889, and Fort Valley High and Industrial School for blacks that began in 1895. In 1917, the Julius Rosenwald Fund was established to provide financial grants for the construction of public schools for African Americans throughout the South. The funding required matching amounts from the Board of Education, the community, and the Rosenwald Fund. From 1920 through 1926, there were 12 Rosenwald schools built in Houston County for the education of black children, the first one being King's Chapel School in 1920. The first black high school in Perry was the Rosenwald School, built in 1925-26 on 3 acres on W.F. Reagan Drive. It was known as Houston County Training School. In 1955, a new black high school was built by the Board of Education on Sunshine Avenue to replace the one on W.F. Reagan Drive. At this time, the old high school became a junior high. New Hope Elementary and Southside Elementary were also built in 1955 by the Board of Education to educate the black children of Perry. A.D. Redmond was principal of Houston County Training School for 24 years, from 1939 to 1963. Mr. Redmond came to Perry in 1931 and was principal of 2 schools in the New Hope community before becoming principal of the Black High School. Under his leadership, Houston County Training School won a state basketball championship in 1949. Mr. Redmond set high expectations for teachers and students and inspired students to dress for success and have confidence in their abilities. His legacy lives on through A.D. Redmond Park. After his death, he was replaced by James R. Hightower, a graduate of Fort Valley State College and Atlanta University, who is listed in the 1950 edition of Who's Who in Colored America for outstanding work in school administration. In 1966, Mr. Hightower changed the school's name to Houston High School. In 1969, Houston High School won its first state football championship under his leadership. Herman C. Reagan Sr. graduated from Houston County Training School in 1945 and taught science and coached at the high school level from 1953 to 1964. In 1964, he became the first principal at King's Chapel Elementary and remained there until his retirement in 1980. Afterwards, he became the first black head football coach and athletic director in Houston County. In the community, he served as a member of the Georgia Teachers Education Association, the NAACP, Perry Housing Authority, Houston County Board of Equalization, Houston County Hospital Authority, and the Houston County Board of Health. He also served on the Southcom Board of Directors and the Perry Area Chamber of Commerce Board. There were many other teachers who served faithfully to educate the black children of Houston County. One of those was George Washington Humphreys, who was a teacher in the New Hope community for 45 years. Another was Annie Lou Royal, whose education only spanned through the 3rd grade before she became the teacher in the Mount Zion School. Fannie Petty Watts was born in Perry in 1899 and became one of 5 founding members of the Zeta Phi Beta sorority at Howard University in 1918. The sorority was founded on the principles of scholarship, service, sisterhood, and finer womanhood. Headquartered in Washington, D.C., the sorority has a diverse membership of more than 120,000 college-educated women with more than 800 chapters in North America, Europe, Asia, Africa, and the Middle East. A more recent educator who has gained recognition in the community is Dr. Lionel Brown. Dr. Brown graduated from Perry High School in 1989 and began teaching at Warner Robins High School. He was voted Teacher of the Year in 2000, became an assistant principal at Perry High School in 2005, and served as the principal of Veterans High School from 2010 to 2015. He was selected as the Executive Director of Secondary Operations for the Houston County Board of Education in 2015, and then became the Superintendent of Schools for Peach County in 2018. As we discuss the black businesses of Perry, we must give acclaim to Mrs. Ruby Boone Tharp, who was the editor of Perry's Black History for the Houston Home Journal for many years. Some of the following information was provided in the many articles she wrote. William Russell, known as Bill the Barber, served blacks and whites from 1842 through 1895, except for the 4 years he served in the war between the states. Before the war, he was hired as a barber to James H. Hodges, father of the editor of the Home Journal. After the war, he resumed the barbering business and soon purchased the furniture for his shop and continued the business on his own account. He was frugal and accumulated some property, owning a comfortable house in New Hope during a number of years before his death. In the 20th century, John Jackson the barber offered cuts, shaves, and shines in his barber shop. He was the only Perry barber for many years. John T. Noble offered the first black mortuary business in Perry. His advertisement in the Houston Home Journal in 1910 stated that he had 35 years of experience in caring for and burying the dead. His business was located in the Oddfellows building on Jernigan Street. Walter and Amanda Toomer built the first black grocery business on Carroll Street in 1905. The store advertised dry goods, notions, fancy shoes, staple groceries, coffins, caskets, and undertaker's supplies. In 1914, the business became a funeral home operated by Fred and Henry Toomer, sons of Amanda and Walter. Fred and Henry Toomer also operated Perry's first black pharmacy, known as Toomer Brothers Pharmacy, established in 1914. Prior to this business, they had operated the first black grist mill in 1901, known as Toomer Brothers Grist Mill, located on Flat Creek. Nathan Toomer, who married Amanda America Dixon, was Walter Toomer's brother. Amanda had inherited her father's plantation in Hancock County and became the richest black woman in America. After her death, Nathan inherited the estate, and an 1893 article in the Newton Enterprise estimated his worth to be $500,000. He remarried and had a son named Nathan Eugene Pinchback Toomer, who used the pen name of Gene Toomer to write the award-winning novel Cain in 1923. Because of his contributions to literature, Gene Toomer was inducted into the Georgia Writers Hall of Fame. Pierce Funeral Home was established in the Oldfield community in the early 1940s by William Mart Pierce. Another part of his business was a transportation service, where Mart Pierce transported people to and from Dr. Gallimore's office. He later entered into a partnership and opened the Pierce and Butts Funeral Home, which was in the Oldfield community on Houston Lake Road. William was chairman of the Houston County Child Development Incorporated and spearheaded the Head Start program. Mrs. Ruby Bryant Richardson was the first black female licensed funeral director in Houston County and the first black female notary public. Ruby and her husband Rayfield began their mortuary business in Perry in 1971 in the Oldfield community. Today, that business is known as Richardson & Son Funeral Home. The Collins family was in the shoe repair business in Perry for over 100 years. Emmanuel Collins manufactured shoes in Perry for men from Houston County in the Confederate Army, and his son John kept the business going for 52 years. Perry youngsters always knew that they could get their shoes repaired by John, and also knew that he would repair their bicycles and other toys. His wife, Viola Collins, operated Collins Cafe on Jernigan Street for blacks only in the 1950s. John and Viola's son, Russell Collins, acquired the business in 1947 and became his family's third-generation shoemaker. The Ebony Motor Court was the first motel in Perry for blacks only. It was opened in 1955 by Amos and Samuel Collins, sons of John and Viola Collins. Annie Lou Williams Bynum ran Bynum's Grocery in the New Hope community from 1950 to 1990. This was a family business in which her husband and daughter assisted in the daily operations of the store. Miss Annie knew the children and their parents and kept a watchful eye on them and provided hot meals for those who came around hungry. She opened a teen center adjacent to the store in 1960 for the black youth to have an opportunity for socialization. Miss Annie loved and served faithfully the citizens of the New Hope community for many years. Another grocery located on Ash Street in the New Hope community was run by Thomas Fudge from 1955 through 1986. The Fudge family grocery store offered fresh meats and vegetables, bread, dairy products, cold drinks, and ice cream. Ethel Bynum Williams was an educator who provided many services to the New Hope community as a business owner. She was the first licensed daycare operator, ran the Curly Top Beauty Shop, and distributed copies of the Pittsburgh Courier, an African-American weekly newspaper published in Pennsylvania. Robert Lumpkin Jr., oldest of 12 children, briefly worked for Hodges Milton at Milton's filling station in 1962. When Milton decided to sell his business on W.F. Reagan Drive, Robert took a chance and bought the station. The business began to grow, and soon the small filling station became a service center. Needing to expand, he purchased land at 1438 Swift Street in 1976 and built Lumpkin Shell, a business that has served the public ever since with gas needs and car service. Robert Lumpkin's skills, integrity, and business reputation resulted in an expansion to the service center and additional retail space in 1987. Through the years, Robert has served the community in many other ways and was awarded the C.B. Hickson Community Service Award in 2015 by the Perry Area Chamber of Commerce. Toby Boone Tharp was considered one of the finest blacksmiths in Houston County and traveled with Mr. Irwin Dennard as far as Kentucky to shoe racehorses. He was known as Mr. Fix-It by the people he served and wore out 3 shops at Houston Lake before retiring. He cared deeply about taking care of animals and taught himself to be quite a veterinarian. Mr. and Mrs. Connie Jones created a prosperous and helpful business with a quick wash washerette in their own backyard. Later, Willie Frank Reagan started a dry cleaning business for blacks in a building on Commerce Street. Willie Prophet, a resident of the New Hope community, and his wagon and mule were well known on the streets of Perry. Willie and his dog traveled the town, selling garden produce every summer for many years. Mr. and Miss Johnny Lee Clerkley were pioneers of the first daycare center to be licensed in Houston County. The Sunshine Kindergarten and Daycare Center started with 12 children and was located on Sunshine Avenue. Lawrence Bannister Sr. was well known in Perry for the houses he built for his neighbors. Born in 1891, he was a farmer on Houston Lake Road, ran 2 farms, a mom-and-pop store in the Oldfield community, and a black hotel in the 40s and 50s. A more recent contribution from the black community is Tilford Winery, the only muscadine winery within the southeastern region of North America to make dry, sweet, and semi-sweet organic wines. Robert Taylor has been growing muscadine grapes since 1994, but his winery was not established until 2001. He offers tours of the winery and vineyards and was the recipient of Fort Valley State University's 2015 Farm Family of the Year Award. Another recent small business addition from the black community is Gowan Atwater, a graphic designer and screen printer. Gowan owns Shirts Like Mine, the first black t-shirt printing company in Perry. Mrs. Ruby Tharp also mentioned Dr. Mark Pierce as a medical doctor, Mrs. Willie Cochran as a librarian, Mrs. O.A. Dennis as a caterer, and Christine Buckles Milton as a hairstylist. All of these were successful in their respective businesses. The spiritual life for the black communities has been provided primarily by 5 black churches, with the first one being established in 1868. These churches are New Hope Baptist Church, Perry Chapel AME, Greater Union Missionary Baptist Church, St. James CME Church, and Oldfield Missionary Baptist Church. Reverend Bob Brooks Sr. served as a spiritual leader in this community for many years, as he lived to be 120 years old. He outlived 2 of his 3 wives and several of his 42 children. His 3rd wife, Beulah Childs Brooks, was a midwife in the black community who witnessed the birth of hundreds of babies over a period of 60-plus years. Born in 1887, she lived to be 100 years old. In 1951, Reverend Willie Johnson organized Troop Number 163, one of the first Boy Scout troops for black men in Houston County. In professional football, Kawaki Thomas has played professional football for the Jacksonville Jaguars, Miami Dolphins, Buffalo Bills, Detroit Lions, and Montreal Alouettes. Dontarius Thomas has played professional football for the Minnesota Vikings and San Francisco 49ers. Casey Hayward was drafted by the Green Bay Packers in 2012, but currently plays for the San Diego Chargers. Canaris Davis played for the New England Patriots. In professional basketball, Al Thornton is an American professional basketball player for the NBA's Los Angeles Clippers. In professional baseball, Lloyd Turner played for the Cleveland Indians in the Midwest League. Eddie Solomon Jr. was a right-handed pitcher in Major League Baseball from 1973 to 1982. He played with the Los Angeles Dodgers, Chicago Cubs, St. Louis Cardinals, Atlanta Braves, Pittsburgh Pirates, and Chicago White Sox. Ron Simmons was the first black world heavyweight champion in professional wrestling history. James Wildcat Bynum was born in Perry and participated in football, baseball, and track while attending Fort Valley High and Industrial School. He gave the name Wildcats to the athletic teams of this school in 1929. Later, this school became Fort Valley State College, and today is known as Fort Valley State University. The athletic teams are still known as the Wildcats. Deborah Roberts Roker graduated from Perry High School and later the University of Georgia with a Bachelor of Journalism degree in 1982 and was awarded the University of Georgia Distinguished Alumnus Award for her rapid success as a journalist. She began her career with ABC News in 1995 as a correspondent for 2020 and anchor for World News Tonight Weekend and for Good Morning America. She has won an Emmy and a Clarion Award for her reporting. Deborah and her husband Al Roker published Been There, Done That, Family Wisdom for Modern Times in 2016. Music is another valuable contribution from the black community. One of the earliest groups to perform in Perry were the Ambitions, a small band from Houston Training School who played for school and community events. Members were Lawrence Goss Jr., Horace Reagan, Billy Grace, Robert Lumpkin, Luther Vance, Billy Brown, James O'Neill, Melvin Reagan, and Albert Solomon. Teresa Labara Mitchell is a professional entertainer, producer, and promoter, and the owner of Mitchell's Academy of Music. Teresa's professional career has included performing with famous artists such as former members of The Temptations, Stevie Wonder, and Tony Bennett. In 2003, she and her husband Mark decided to start a music school in Perry, which has provided the opportunity to work with some extraordinary local talent. The Conquest Show Band has been performing together for over 10 years. The band plays almost all types of music, but specializes in rhythms and blues from the 60s to the present. Perry's own Jackie Hodges, Perry High School class of 1978, is a vocalist with this band. The Lotus Band plays jazz, rhythms and blues, and gospel music for local venues and is made up of the following members: Elgin Mayfield on the saxophone, Joey Bronner on the keyboard, Bob Hall on the guitar, Dr. Lionel Brown on bass guitar, Jasmine Walker as vocalist, and J.D. Dunn on the drums. Leon Collins was signed by Elf Records and had other recordings with Audio 40 and Checker Records. He started singing in church and school choirs at the age of 5 and continued singing through high school. By the mid-1960s, Leon had sung lead vocals with the Vanguards and the Ambitions. In the late 60s, Leon moved to Boston and recorded his first two songs, Somebody Help Me and It's a Sad Day Tonight. His single, I Just Want to Say I Love You, has been popular on the United Kingdom Northern and Modern soul scenes over the years. James Davis was a renowned musician known as the Drumbeat Man. He was inducted into the Music Hall of Fame and was highlighted in the Living Blues magazine. Essie Mae Brooks began writing and singing gospel songs as a child and was later inducted into the Music Hall of Fame. She performed many times on stage at the Apollo Theater in New York City, leaving a legacy that her life has been well sung. Ulysses Davis, father of James and Essie, was a drum beater for over 50 years. He would play drum beat every weekend and people would gather to dance all night long. His oldest brother played blues on the guitar and his brother Clint played the bass drum. These are only a few of the individuals from the New Hope, Sand Hill, Creekwood, Five Points, Hilltop, and Oldfield communities who have contributed to the civic, economic, spiritual, cultural, and educational growth of Perry. We hope you have enjoyed this narrative and will plan to contribute other stories to our archive collection.